All right, so we've talked about some pretty technical stuff there, and I think that many in the audience, depending on their level of knowledge with the Adobe apps or how much editing they do versus other filmmaking tests, they might be thinking, "Oh my God, like these guys are, at top of the mountain. They're at the top of their game. They're working with the best people. How do I ever get there? How do I aspire to that?" So I think we're going to go into some fun and more general questions that I'd like each of you to answer, because I think it would be really fun and helpful for the students and teachers here. So, Peter, let's start with you. What inspired you to pursue a career in film? Let's go way back.
Um, what inspired me film? I don't know. I think it's because after I rejected everything else, that was the only one left. All the other careers I wasn't really a game for. And then I chose the route of going to film school, which I went to not one but two film schools. I went to both undergraduate and graduate.
And what were they?
Boston University, which at the time was called the SP, I think it was called School of Public Communications at the time. It's different now. And then NYU for graduate school.
Now, if memory serves me, you had some fun and interesting classmates along the way at NYU. And who might they have?
Ang Lee was in my class, and Spike Lee was a year ahead of me there. I used to check out my equipment from Spike Lee because he worked in the equipment room.
Was he nice to you?
Yes, yeah, no, he was great. I mean, he's like from the moment I saw him or met him, the guy just like I don't know, I don't know if he's just always on adrenaline. He just works really hard, and I have zero surprise that he is where he is, and I admire him so much. I mean, I think Do the Right Thing is one of the classic American movies ever made, and everybody should watch it, especially today.
Yeah, he's pretty fabulous. It's just so cool that at the time you were doing this, you were with those people.
Hmm.
Okay, same question for Jennifer. What inspired you to do this?
Um, yeah. So yeah, I guess I didn't have a specific movie or anything that inspired me. I feel like it was more of a gradual process. Like in middle school, a bunch of my friends and I would make videos with like my dad's camcorder, and I would edit it in Windows Movie Maker. So that kind of, I guess, opened up that world for me. And I didn't know about, editing being an actual job until I took a film class in high school. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to go to film school. So I went to Columbia College Chicago, studied film with a concentrating in post-production.
So how many years ago did you graduate?
2015, so 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty amazing trajectory, but you're pretty special, hard you work. So within 5 years, here we are talking to a few hundred people about how you can do something like this. So I knew the moment I met you the first time a few years ago at Fincher that we'd be having conversations like this today. You were just super hard worker and just so likable and high energy that I'm really happy it worked out for you.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. So Ben,
Hmm.
your turn.
I don't know the actual answer to that. What officially inspired me? Always love movies, just love them. And I I actually originally started down a visual effects path. I thought that it would be really cool to make the things that didn't exist. And visual effects is very, 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 very granular and difficult. And I think that along the lines, or along the line somewhere, I decided that you still get to make something that doesn't exist when you're making a whole movie. And that was a lot more fun than spending weeks on one shot. And so I sort of veered away from VFX, and but the love for movies and actually just enjoying movies never faded. That's why I'm here. Just it's a lot of fun to create things that don't exist and let other people enjoy them.
Well, glad to have you, and the things you've achieved both creatively and technically are definitely, you are on the cutting edge of how all this stuff works. So great job on that. So back to Peter, what kind of skills helped you along the way? Like you're giving advice to students here, as far as creativity, interpersonal skills, technical skills, business skills, organizational. What would you tell these young lads and women?
Well, I think you have to know, you have to have at least a general knowledge of the technology. That's one thing. Like, well, somebody asked me once, like, how do I keep up with the technology? And the answer is, I actually don't. I get involved in the technology that's valid at the moment we're doing a project, and then I focus on that project. And when I come out the other end, there's all this other technology which will come into play in the next one. So that's one thing. I do budgeting, I do scheduling, so I have to have a sense of, how long things take or what's reasonable for something, what period of time is reasonable for a certain process. And then I do have to know math, because I am crunching numbers with the rates of everything from labor to rotoscoping frames. And then, especially with the film, with a filmmaker like David, it does not hurt for me to have a pretty good sense of cinema history, especially when we get involved in a movie like Mank, where we're constantly talking about film processes in the 30s. I think everybody should have like some kind of expertise in life other than the actual filmmaking itself. Because then when you put together a group and you have all these people with these varied specialties, it somehow always comes into play, and it's very valuable. I think rule one is you have to have curiosity about everything. And I think that's what's true about our team, is like when we have our lunches at work, it's because there's a bunch of people sitting around a table that are curious that we have really lively lunches, and it carries into our work.
Yeah, I've been with you guys at some of those lunches, just fascinating, and you never know like what celebrity or actor might pop in just like out of nowhere. I've sometimes been speechless. I'm not going to mention any names, but those are fun lunches. So Jennifer, what do you think about all this? Skills?
Yeah. So I feel like as an assistant, so much of it is being extremely detail oriented and organized. And I feel like a lot of that shows at the PA level. And so I PA'd for almost 2 years before, Peter gave me the opportunity to work on Mindhunter as an apprentice editor. And so during my time as a PA, I took a lot of detailed notes and made documents and tried to remember things, even as simple as like lunch orders, so that, if an editor didn't have time to order lunch, I knew what they liked. And it's things like that, and trying to anticipate stuff before they're asked of you. And so I feel like a lot of those skills I learned because I had a lot of internships when I was in college. So that was probably like the biggest thing for me. I think I had like 5 internships, from like commercial to like a Netflix series, and then I ended up at Disney. And so, yeah, that's all really, those were all kind of like stepping stones to how I got to where I am. And also just having a great attitude, because, we work a lot of hours, so we all want to be surrounded with people that we enjoy being around.
Yeah, it just amazes me, like when I'm over there with our team, how sometimes there could be so much going on, and you guys are always just kind to each other and considerate. Nobody's freaking out, really calm, cool, and collected. So again, that's a tribute to your professionalism. Ben, what's your advice?
Skills. What I'm going to say is a little bit more general, not a specific skill. But I'm going to say that I think that the most valuable skill is to have a little bit of confidence in what you can actually do versus what you know how to do, and be willing to say yes, knowing that there's a tiny chance you could fail. but that you're actually not going to let that failure stop you, and you're going to figure it out. Pretty much everything that I know, and really every job that I have worked on that sticks in my memory as a wonderful experience, had a little bit of possibility of failure connected to it. And it was the knowing that, all right, when we hit that point, I'm not going to let that failure happen. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to figure it out. We're going to develop something new. We're going to get into the meat of it and make sure that it works, because this is what we need to do. The car can't break down in the middle and just not get fixed. So in a general way, put yourself in a position so that you can do that and you feel confident doing that, even though you're not sure about the outcome. And I will partner that with, and I know this isn't always a popular one, but learn how a computer actually works. Because if this was a film days, you wouldn't say like, oh, I don't know how to use the Moviola, or no, that's how a camera works. I don't do that. I don't know. And this is our tool now, just because it's also the tool where you check your email and browse on the internet. The details of how a computer works tie directly into how Premiere works and how data is stored and how things play back and what you're able to do, how you can circumvent things and do them more efficiently. And everybody at 13 is very versed in being able to troubleshoot and develop. I'm not saying that everyone's like a coder and everyone like writes code all day and is developing software and whatnot, but everyone is able to figure things out and troubleshoot for themselves, so that there's not one IT person that we rely on, and instead we can fix things in the moment and think about how they can be done better.
Excellent. Speaking of a term you mentioned, number 13, before we do our last question, Peter, what's the significance of number 13 that everybody keeps mentioning?
David's producer is a woman named Sion Chafin, and both of us on our own in our youth flipped the superstition of number 13 and made it our lucky number. And they took with David and Sion, they went so far as to actually name their building that.
So when we say something happened at number 13, it's where you guys were. Okay.
Yeah. And today's a lucky day there, by the way.
There you go. Yes, Friday the 13th. Okay, knock wood. All right, I'm going to give you guys one last question, and then we'll have a full half hour for Q&A. And for those of you willing to stick around, I know our panelists can stay a little while, so we may go a little over our 2-hour allotment, but I think it'll be well worth your time. Okay, so let me go to Jennifer on this one. If you could go back to when you're a student starting out in the industry and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be? So now roll back a few years. Would you do exactly what you've done, or would you have changed something?
I feel like the advice that I would give myself is to make sure to stay in touch with people and the connections that you make. I feel like that's something that seems obvious, but it's a lot harder than it sounds. Because people get busy and you lose touch. And especially when you're starting out, you definitely want to make an effort to maintain those contacts. And that's actually something that I didn't really do when I was starting out in my internships and on my first show. I don't really remember. But yeah, and so I feel like you just never know where that's going to lead and who's, who knows who. And I guess for me, starting out at number 13, I was working on Hidden Figures at the time, and I got information from a Disney exec from my internship, and Peter's wife, Rita, was looking for an assistant editor on a non-union show at the time. And so it was like this weird path that I, somehow got into Peter's inbox, and he ended up interviewing me for Mindhunter, and he ended up knowing the post supervisor on my show at Hidden Figures. So it's a bit of a small industry, and I think that's something that I would probably, the advice that I'd give myself.
it's excellent advice, and it sure worked out. Ben, same question.
I don't know that I would change too much because even though I might give myself some advice, I'm happy where I ended up. But
Answer.
the one thing that I would say is that I do remember right as I was finishing school and getting out of school, being very concerned about where to work. How do I work next? What's my next job? Where am I going to go? You know, I have these skills and I want to be doing this and doing that, and this is where I want to be. And I actually got this advice from someone else later on, and I think it's great advice. Think about who you want to work with and make sure that you're putting yourself in a position where you like the people you're working with. Jennifer said it, we work long hours and we work really closely with a tight-knit group of people, and you want to make sure those are people that you can have fun lunches with, regardless of what you may think of, oh, this is where I want to be. Make sure that you're enjoying it, not just constantly hungry for the next thing.
Yeah. You don't want it to just pass you by.
Right.
Sure. So, Peter, your wise advice on that one.
In my case, as I already told you, I went to 2 film schools. I don't know that I needed to do that. I think it would have been smarter for me to broaden my horizon, either like do undergraduate in either business or literature or something like that. But the one thing I did do and that I recommend everyone who wants to do this is that first of all, consume TV shows or movies, whatever you like, in vast quantities, and have opinions about them. That's one thing. And the other one is find your way to be around other people who love this stuff. So that you're talking about it, so that that is what lunch is. It's talking about this stuff. And if you go out, that's you're going out to movies or watching TV shows together. But find a way, and that's one of the great things about a film school is at least there you've got a built-in audience of people that are also in love with that. But there are other ways to hang out with if you don't get to go to film school, you can find ways in your community where people are making low budget stuff and go find out, even if it's for free, go work for them and then start to meet people. But anyway, and the other bit of advice that I always give people is you get 2 job offers, one for low pay with awesome people or one for high pay with real jerks. You choose the low pay one because over the long term, that's what's going to pay off in your quality of life.
That is just great advice. I found the same thing too, that sometimes you go for that carrot for either your financial circumstances or for other reasons, but never ever go for the money if you have a fantastic opportunity like that in front of you, because you never know when it's going to come again.
And you know what, Mike, I'm just going to say too, it kind of fits in between what Peter and Jennifer said. You never know when the smallest, what seems to be the smallest job is actually proving to be the greatest opportunity. Something that you show as being detail-oriented here turns into an awesome opportunity later because people learned they could trust you. Not because you were all of a sudden becoming an assistant editor or an editor or in a key role, but because that one person that you were working with knows that you get it right every time, and now they want to trust you on something else. So always own it and really just try and do a great job, even if it doesn't seem like it's important. It is. Everything that's done on a daily basis is important, even if it doesn't seem important to you.
Well, that is just great advice. If you see me looking down and to the side a little bit, it's just the chat pod is just blowing up with compliments to you guys, how inspirational you all are, and just fascination with the workflow. So I really I thank you all for this part of the conversation. It's just been great hearing everybody's story and getting the advice.